Hello friends, I'm Jeanette and you're visiting the Neal's Homestead. Today we're in the kitchen again. I've been playing around a little bit with Impossible Pie. A little bit of history about Impossible Pie. From my research it shows me that this was first started being popular back in the 1800s, and they think some lady just put some biscuit mix into her pie mixture kind of accidentally and discovered that it made a separate crust whenever she did that. It started becoming popular and people started doing it when they heard about it. And then around 1930, biscuit came into existence where they would mix flour, leavening, salt, and some kind of fat together and then sell it in a box where it was quick and easy for a woman to measure out a cup of that and add a little bit of this and a little bit of that and have something ready to mix up real quick instead of having to measure out each ingredient. Like, doing that is really hard, but the age of convenience was well on its way where women more and more wanted everything convenient in their kitchen, and so they didn't have to spend quite so much time doing it, and they could do whatever other things they wanted to do. So an Impossible Pie basically uses biscuit, eggs, milk as the base, and then you can add what you want. The original Impossible Pie, I believe, was a coconut pie. And they believe that it got started down in the South because coconut pie was especially popular down in the South in the United States. And so today what I'm going to do is make a coconut Impossible Pie. And then I have planned over at least the next 7 days to make variations of the Impossible Pie. And I have several different combinations in mind, so I hope that you will pay attention and make sure you come back and watch my follow-up videos about different Impossible Pie recipes. So the first thing I'm going to do today is make my own biscuit. I've never been one to buy biscuit. I've always just done everything from scratch. But for this recipe and for this series, I'm going to make up a big batch of my own biscuit. Now, if you prefer to go ahead and buy biscuit, then you just need to have that on hand for doing something like this. Well, I have a 5-gallon bucket of flour here that I'm going to scoop out of, and what I need, the amount I'm going to make, it's going to take 6 cups of flour. Now, you don't want to pack your flour down in your cup. You don't want to shake it too much. You want it to be loose, and then I usually try to scrape the top off with a knife or some other straight edge if that's more convenient. I'm going to use 6 cups of flour. And then I'm going to use baking powder. And for this I need 3 tablespoons of baking powder for this amount of flour. And for that I just use the lid to rake off the top. 3 tablespoons. 1 tablespoon of salt, and then you need to add fat, and the fat I'm going to use is butter because I have a lot of butter. I own a cow that I milk. Now you can use lard or oil if you want, or shortening. Before I add my butter, I want to stir this mixture together just so that the baking powder and the salt are pretty much mixed in with the flour. And then I'll make a well in the middle, put my butter into there. My butter is still fairly hard. I had it in the refrigerator and I've had it out for a while, but it's still kind of hard. But actually that is really fairly good for doing something like this. And then I'll be using my pastry blender to cut the butter into the flour. And I think that it's better to use cold butter rather than to use warm, soft butter. I think what you're doing is coating the fat particles with the flour, coating the flour with the fat particles, however you want to look at it. You're mixing them together really well. And you want to do this until it starts looking like cornmeal. Well, I've worked this until I feel really good about the texture of it. It's I can't feel any big blobs of butter in there. It feels nice and fine. So I'm happy with that. You can store this in your refrigerator, it's recommended. And it's also recommended up to 3 months, but I would go longer because I tend to be kind of a rebel about things like this. And I think it could probably stay in your refrigerator for a lot longer than that. It might depend on what kind of fat you used, whether you used shortening or oil. The butter might not last quite as long as some other things. The reason this is called an impossible pie is because it doesn't have a crust. You mix all the stuff together and it makes its own crust. Now, I'm not exactly sure how it does this. I have my own assumptions because I think that part of the flour mixes with part of the eggs and it settles down to the bottom and cooks against the hot pie plate and makes kind of a thicker part down there that would be considered a crust. And the ingredients like the coconut floats up to the top as it's cooking, and then it kind of makes a crust on top. So however it works, it's really a good pie, and what I like best about it, it's so quick and easy and will give you a good dessert that the whole family's gonna like. The first thing you need to do before you start mixing your ingredients is to set your oven to 400 degrees. Now the impossible pie itself, after we get past the biscuit making part of it, is very, very simple with minimal ingredients. And so you're going to have eggs, milk, sugar, and the biscuit. Those are the basic ingredients. Then we're going to add the coconut too. So what we do is just mix it all together. 4 eggs. These are out of our chickens, so it's a blessing to have eggs on the property. We don't have to go to the grocery store. I'm going to give those a quick stir. And then I'm going to stir in the milk. And the sugar. Here's something I failed to mention that we put in there is a little bit more butter, a tablespoon more of butter. I'll put all the ingredients down in the comments so you can follow along. Now if you want to, you can use a mixer for this, or you can put it in the blender. I prefer not to dirty up too many dishes, so I'm going to try to mix it with my whisk. And next I put in the biscuit. Then the coconut, stir that in. And finally, I'll add a teaspoon of vanilla. We'll stir it up. It doesn't take much stirring just to make sure it's all done. It's very liquid, so you need to make sure that when you pour this, you can get it to your oven without spilling it. I'll get this into the 400 degree oven for 25 to 30 minutes. Doesn't even take that long to cook. Okay, the time's up. I did it for 30 minutes. Now we have to decide if it's done. And there are a couple ways I decide that. Hopefully if I've got a handle on my pie plate, I'll take it and I'll, one side and I'll jiggle it. If it doesn't slosh in the middle, like it's all still liquid, then it's probably done. A more sure way to do it is to take a knife and stick it down into the center. If the knife comes out clean, then it's done. That means all the eggs are cooked up good so that it's turned into custard. Okay, we'll set it there to cool for a little bit. I'm really liking this impossible pie deal because if your house is anything like my house, people like to eat desserts. And this is a very healthy dessert because in the whole pie it has 4 eggs, 2 cups of milk, and the whole pie only has 3/4 of a cup of sugar in it, which is not really very much. I love the easiness of it and the quickness of baking it. You can eat it hot or cold, either way. I'm going to let this cool for a while until old guy comes in, and then we'll give him a taste test. He's always happy to do that for me. Well, old guy came in, the pie's cool. He laid down in his chair and took a little nap, so now we're about ready to have some pie. On the top you can see the coconut in there. It floats to the top with a little crustiness on top of that. Get this out of here. It's always hard to get the first piece out without tearing it apart. Okay, well, I left a little bit of it behind. Maybe that'll help us see what the crust looks like. So the bottom of the pie makes kind of a crusty part that I think it gets like that because it's close to the hot part of the pie plate and it cooks a little bit more. I think it's a mixture of flour and egg. And then the center part is a custard. Basically, it's the eggs and the milk, and it cooks into a custard. And then the top part's a little bit crusty with some sugar and the coconut. There's no defined edge crust, but it's all very nice. And I got a second piece out for myself, and of course it came out fine. It always does. The second piece of pie always comes out easier. Okay, old guy, you're here to do your duty to God and our YouTube audience.
And my wife.
I know you like it because I've already made it several times.
And it's still good.
Yeah. Does it seem crispy anywhere, like is the top a little bit crispy?
Oh, maybe on the bottom it's a little bit, but
Like crispy or chewy?
it's more chewy.
Like a crust.
It's just good like a pie. That coconut is sure good in there.
Okay, friends, there you have it. Old guy likes it. I knew he would. You probably did too. So keep watching for future videos. I'm going to try to do these back to back in a 7-day period and have 7 different variations of an impossible pie. And I think you will like what you see because you can not only make it for dessert, but you can also make it for a meal. Stay tuned. Thanks for visiting. Bye.